Hello guys and girls, how's it going? Screezilla here, and I hope you're all having a lovely day, had a good Christmas and have a good new year. And this will likely be my last video of 2018. 2018 has been a hell of a year. Now this is my review, callback, look at, future calling. I've done it for a couple of years now and I thought I'd do another one today. So this is a bit off script and just gonna really plod along. So really, we started off with Advancing Storm at the beginning of the year, which really did shake up things, especially for the top tier, because we had the M1 Abrams, the T-64B and the Challenger Mark II. We also had things like the HE-177 finally for the Germans, you know, getting a actual heavy bomber at long last, which I had been calling for years. And this was the start of things to come, really. We knew that this year was going to be a big year for top tier. We knew that this year was going to be one of those years that basically meant everything was going to change. We also had a graphic improvement as well. The Degner engine was improved heaps. The deformation of ground, the water on the ground, things like that were changed, and there was huge changes. We had the Leopard 2K come out as well, and then after that we had Project X, which saw the biggest change, I think, for the top tier of tanks, and that's where we got the Leopard 2A4, the T-64BV, the Type 90, and the AMX-40, of course. We also saw jets come in like the FJ-4B Fury, which was a sort of little nod to something that was coming. It was a very sort of interesting jet to appear. We also had we had many more BF-110s added as well as the F4U-7, some really sort of late war planes and some, you know, early war planes, as well as the BF-109Z, which was a complete failure. After that we had the Valkyries come, which was a big surprise to many. We sort of knew that they wanted to get helicopters in the game. That was a given. We all knew that they wanted helicopters to be a big part of the game at some stage. So the Valkyries, technically beta, was started. Helicopters were pressed into beta, and you had the Americans and Russians getting their helicopters. And this really saw a big change to the top tier gameplay. This was a real big change to the meta, and it was something that we're still feeling now. The change has really been something that is very hard hitting. The sheer, you know, feeling of the helicopters was something completely different, the way they flew and everything like that, but we knew they were coming from the April Fool's jest event. We got helicopters, you know, a few years back, so it wasn't a complete surprise, so to say. How the hell have they got a plane up already? Bloody hell. We've already got planes up, God. So yeah, some big changes in the game there for a lot of people, and it really changed how you played the game as well. The Valkyries are still being tested and are still sort of being done, and it's still a lot of work needed to be done on the old helicopter sort of side of things. But it's slowly getting there, and we are seeing more and more sort of helicopters and more modern things added. And that's the way War Thunder is going, it looks like. We thought we had seen sort of... Am I going to tip over? Am I going to tip over? No, I don't tip over. Good job. Good job, truck. Good job. You get up there? So it was a really big change. We also had the premiums added, the tier 6 premiums, and they were huge news. Then we had German helicopters with the Knights of the Sea. We also had things like the ERA pack for the T-80 and, well, the T-80 and stuff like that. We had German helicopters added to the mix. you know, it wasn't just America and Russia anymore. The Germans had come and were prepared. I don't think this thing can actually do with the trick of some of the other Italian armoured cars, unfortunately. We had the German helicopters added, and of course we had naval going into live. And that was a big change of the system. You know, naval going live was a huge change. You know, like, it's, a lot of us didn't feel it was ready, myself included. You know, I'm never going to get up that hill. We are in a sticky wicket now. We're in a bit of a sticky wicket. So, you know, naval going into open beta was just a huge thing for everyone, and really did make for some interesting gameplay. You know, open beta for naval, holy crap, it's come at last, you know, and people could actually play ships and stuff like that. You know, it was a really big change, and oh crap, I'm gonna die. All good, he missed. Good, okay, killed a comet. There we go, without too much damage. It was a really big change, and with naval coming in, it really did sort of make the game very different, because you had this whole new sort of type of gameplay that you were playing. Naval gameplay was something that nobody really had much experience with, and it's a very different type of game to play. You know, I'll be able to butt climb up here. Come on, butt, do your work. Gonna gain traction. Are we gonna gain traction? No, we're not. No, we're not. It's not gonna work for us. So, you know, naval came into the game, and that really was a big change, you know, and it was something that we had been waiting for months, and it finally happened. And then finally, with 1.85, isn't it? That's the newest one. We had Italy up here. We had the Italian ground forces come in. We had some new boats. We've gone from just light boats, such as, you know, destroyers and gunboats, to cruisers, and we're going to go to heavy cruisers. And this is where I'm going to start with predictions for next year, because next year we're going to start getting things like heavy cruisers, and I guarantee that's that bastard that I shot. May as well J out now, because there's no point in even trying. I hate planes. I really wish we had a tank mode without planes. No, that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to hit J because I can't bother giving that bastard more points. You know, it really did change how gameplay was done. You know, we had these new Italian vehicles in. We had another nation added. With Japan, for instance, you know, there was a new vehicle added. We've had things like the light IFVs added into the game, and that's a real big change up for the game. You know, IFVs are a completely different game style, and this is the future we're going to. And unfortunately, War Thunder is going to go into the futuristic kind of area, modern day. And I say unfortunately because, well, it's problematic in many ways. The main problem being that it's basically just guesswork. You know, what we're doing is just guesswork, you know. And it is just a guesswork thing because we don't know the specifications of many of these modern tanks and modern day vehicles, so it becomes very problematic. You know, it really does make things hard, and that's one of the things that I'm not looking forward to. We've also, of course, I missed one of the big things, of course, is you know, 1.85 was not just for Italian tanks. We also got supersonic jets. We've gone from basically an era of sort of very early Korean War sort of things to post-Korean War. We now have supersonic jets in some tech trees. Only select fews. We have missiles. We have lock-on missiles. We have the Javelin, for instance. You know, we have supersonic jets that carried heat-seeking missiles, you know, and that's a big change. That's a big change for the game, where they were sort of saying before that, you know, they're never going to add this feature, it's never going to happen. And of course, whenever Gaijin say they're never going to add a feature, it means they will add a feature. But we've gone from this sort of World War II style game to a modern shooter game, like a modern game, and that's what's happened. But what's next to come? We can't really go much further forwards for tanks, because, as I said, what we've got now with the Abrams, it's kind of guesswork. You know, there's a lot that we know about them, but the sort of early generation Abrams and things like that, it's getting to a point where you're getting to guesswork, because there's a lot of guesswork put into these vehicles. Let's look at the Type 10, for instance. Sorry, the Type 90, sorry. Brain was just dead there. The Type 90, for instance. You know, it's a tank that is in current service. It's a tank that is still active with the Japanese military. It is a modern tank. And the value of armour is not released to the public. You know, there is some knowledge of what it is, but we don't know how well this composite works. We don't actually know any of the figures of the composite armour. We don't know much about it. There are some very educated people that have some very educated guesses, but it's not a thing that people know a lot about, and it's very hard to develop a game around things you don't know much about. It's not too bad in modern warfare and things like that, where you have hit point based systems and stuff like that, where you don't need to be completely accurate. But War Thunder is about accuracy. And I do hear some chortling in the background, because, you know, they do remove shells or add shells to some vehicles to make them better at their BR, for instance, or, you know, that there are certain things that they do to tweak things to make them so they are less effective or more effective, you know, so it's not 100% accurate, but they try to be as accurate as possible. But when you start getting modern tanks, especially Type 90 and possibly the Type 10, the Leclerc, the Ariete, the Abrams M1A1, the Challenger 2, you know, like the Leopard, whatever. God, there's too many numbers on these bloody tanks these days. But when you start getting these things, and of course Russian tanks, of course, whatever, T-90 or whatever it is, you know, like, you're getting into the stage where you don't know what you're actually doing, and that becomes problematic, because you're adding things that people have to go, is that really how it works? Is that really how good it was? Is that really what it was? Blah blah blah. And it becomes very problematic. So we'll have to see how that goes. I guess for the future, for next year, what we're going to see is we're going to see more supersonic jets, of course. We're going to see them in hopefully every nation. We're going to see helicopters for every nation. We're going to see the Japanese Navy coming out, and I expect that's going to be the first big release this year, is the Japanese Navy going into beta. And I expect the big change is going to be that there's going to be a heavy cruiser or a battle cruiser in the Japanese naval lineup. Don't ask me what one at the moment, I can't think what would work, but I expect there's going to be a battle cruiser or a heavy cruiser added into this sort of Japanese Navy lineup. And you'll have, like, America getting a heavy cruiser as well, or it's a bit tricky with America because they didn't really have. They had some big gun cruisers, but they weren't really very different from some of their other cruisers. You know, battleships. Yeah, America has some bloody brilliant battleships, but their cruiser lineup was sort of very standard and very. They sort of went for more guns than armour and stuff like that, whereas some other nations went for more armour and guns. But there's a lot to discuss there. Submarines, is that going to come? Possibly. As much as Gaijin have said no, it won't, and because submarine gameplay will be too slow, it won't be interesting enough. World War II submarines were too slow, and yeah, they were slow underwater, but you can have people waiting and lying in wait and stuff like that. It's different gameplay mechanics, of course. So we could see submarines coming in. That might be a big thing for the Japanese Navy release, is actually having submarines in their lineup, along with America, because America does have some very good submarine lineups. So, as I say, it's going to be an Axis team and an Allied team getting the items first. The big thing, though, is Russia doesn't have a great World War II submarine contingent, so to say. Like, the Russian Navy wasn't great in World War II in general. And not disparaging the Russian Navy or anything, but the Russian Navy just sort of had this real brain fart, because they had, basically World War I style stuff, which then they didn't have anything, and then they went to World War sort of post-war and sort of Cold War technologies. A lot of their river gunboats and stuff were fantastic in the Second World War, but that's what they were called for, that's what they were needed. They needed them for that sort of area, whereas they did have a few good destroyers and a couple of good cruisers and things like that, but a lot of their naval sort of strength was absolutely beaten into the ground and destroyed because the German bombardments and stuff like that, they got hit really hard. And then, Italy has a fantastic naval lineup, same as France. There's some really cool, interesting ships in there. But then things like Germany does suffer for post-war ships, because they had a lot of sanctions imposed on them. Of course, we've got the Albatross and stuff like that, but there's not many larger ships that really are available for the German Navy post-war, so the balancing becomes problematic. And again, it gets problematic because of, the sort of supersonic jet thing as well for Germany is a little bit of a hard one, because you're just going to end up with copy and pastes of American stuff, because that's what they were using generally. We might find some interesting stuff, but who knows. I would really love to see an interwar tech tree being put in, just because I love the old tanks, because they're ridiculous. I would love to see some pre-war tanks, pre-Second World War, tanks put into the tech tree as, 0.0s or something like that, really just below the reserve line, just create a brand new reserve list. Then we could have the Renault FT and things like that in game. But seeing some more sort of early tanks actually in the rank 1, I want rank 1 to get some serious love. Armoured cars are going to be a big step, and they're going to do a new physics model for armoured cars. They surely have to, because at the moment armoured cars are, you get hit in the wheel, it doesn't really do too much. So armoured cars need a big change. But what's next for them to go for? The only thing left now is submarines, and of course battleships and stuff like that. You can't really do anything to get a big press on the naval side of things, because it's like, on the ground forces side of things, because until you add armoured cars, if you make a big update of armoured cars, then it's really just like, well, we're just adding more tanks, we've got tanks, that's just it. I guess towards the end of 2019 we might be seeing some more modern jets. We might be seeing things that were around in the 80s. We might see things like the Tornado or the Tomcat, the Su-29. We might start seeing jets like that towards the end of 2019. But that's pretty much the way they have to go now. They have to go modern, and go modern hard. But is that going to mean that the sort of low ends are going to suffer? Because that's a problem as well. Another thing as well is the gameplay. They really need to change the gameplay, because at the moment it's so stale and boring. People leave because of that. If they actually added more game modes in, maybe it would bring people back. So I think what we will see in 2019 is, well, what I hope to see is an emphasis on game modes, an emphasis on improvement of the game types, not just cap A, B, and C, or kill the whole enemy team. Excuse me. More things like guard this airbase. We've got things like modular airfields now implemented. We could have more interesting things like guard your airbase, where you get a set amount of respawns, but the enemy team maybe doesn't. Just more generally interesting game modes, I think, is the future for this. So hopefully we will see that in our future. Also, of course, we're going to be seeing SAM missiles, surface-to-air missiles are going to come in, and that's going to be a big thing as well. So yeah, that will probably be one of the big implementations of one of the patches next year. Are SAMs coming in, so they'll have a big hoo-ha about that, and we'll have a big emphasis on SAM missiles. More and more HDGM style vehicles as well will be coming. So it's going to be, there's going to be a lot of focus on the modern stuff, I think, next year, unfortunately, because I don't feel like that's the best option. I don't think modern gameplay is the best gameplay, personally. This is my personal opinion. I've got my Type 90, and I've played top tier, and I've not enjoyed top tier pretty much ever in any game. I always find it miserable and boring and pretty much repetitive. It's not got any quirks or qualms to it. It's not got that real feeling of difference that the earlier tiers have. It's still just tank against tank, and it's still just point to aim. Because the thing with these modern battle tanks is they had targeting systems, they had computers, they had all of this stuff. And you don't get that in these tanks. You just get a tank that is essentially the same as a World War II tank. All the difference is you've got better visuals, you've got more zoom on your lens, and that's it. And of course a better gun and faster speeds and all that sort of stuff. But essentially, you could play a tank at rank 1, and then you could play a tank at rank 6, and it's essentially the same tank. The only thing you're going to find is it's just faster and handles better. But when you look through the gun, it's still the same game. There's no difference in how these tanks go. There's no difference in how they work. They're just the same tanks, copy and paste the same gameplay every time, and that's modern tanks for you in War Thunder. It's just this purely sort of boringish sort of gameplay that you don't have any real challenge to. It's not really any difference to a normal game. It's just the same as any other game that you would play in ground RB, but instead of driving a T34 around, you're driving a brand new battle tank around, and it's got the same aiming system and the same aim mechanics as your essentially First World War era tank. It doesn't make any sense to me, so I do hope we see improvements in that respect. But that's just me. What do you think? What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to come? And what have you enjoyed this year the most? It has been a polarising year for the community. There's been some real big changes, and it has been a very big change to the whole system. It's been a very big shake-up. So how do you feel it's been? How do you feel about it was implemented? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Do you look forward to next year, and what do you hope for next year? What do you reckon there will be coming next year? I'd love to hear your opinions below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this year, and thank you so much to all my new subscribers as well. Personal message now. I've been extremely sick this year. I've been getting sicker and sicker, and it's really been affecting my life. I've become casual at my workplace, where I was formerly permanent part-time, and I've basically been extremely unwell. I've got a nervous system condition that means I'm always in pain. No pity party, but just to let you know, because I'm sure some of the newer people on the channel don't know what my story is. But basically, I'm sort of in constant pain and constantly fatigued. No matter how much coffee I drink, I can never stay awake. For instance, you could IV drip caffeine into my heart, and I would still be like below blood pressure and just sitting there going, "I'm tired. I just want to go to bed." So that's problematic. And I have had a really tough year this year because I've just felt like my channel hasn't been growing much, and I've sort of been wondering why I should keep going. But every time I log in, there's always a new subscriber, or somebody made a nice comment, or somebody said something that just brightens up my day. So thank you so much to everyone for that. I really appreciate it. Almost hit 450 for the year. Look, I'm pretty happy with that. I was hoping to get 500 this year, but my fallback goal was 450, and I got that almost. There's a few days left, so you never know. So thank you so much to everybody that's subscribed and that's watching this video. Really, I really appreciate it, and hopefully next year we can soldier on and get this channel up a little bit higher. I'm sorry I haven't done any history of videos recently. Well, not many. The history of videos are a little bit on hold at the moment, just as I sort of get things worked out. It's been a bit of a hectic time of year for me, and as I said, it's been a bit of a rough one as well. So I will be looking at doing some more history videos soon. I sort of been writing scripts for some and thinking of ideas for others, and failing a lot at both, really, which has been not so fun. But yeah, a big thank you to everybody that has subscribed to the channel and does watch these videos. I really appreciate it, and I really look forward to next year. Hopefully 2019 will be a nice year for us. Hopefully the channel will grow, and we will go from there. So thank you so much to all my loyal subscribers, and to my disloyal subscribers as well, just anyone that's subscribed. Thank you so much to anyone that's watched this video, and have a happy new year. I hope 2019 goes very well for you. I hope it goes better than this year for you. Thank you so much, and bye bye.